Welcome back to the Lovin Dubai show. Should interns be paid? Today we've got Rami Naim, Managing Director at Guildhall, here to share insider tips on how students and fresh grads can get noticed, how they can stand out from the crowd and make the most of every opportunity. Welcome to the show.
Pleasure to be here, thank you.
Let's start simple. For anyone watching who's on the job hunt right now, how easy is it to actually get an internship in Dubai?
I think if you ask interns, they'll say it's extremely difficult. But if you understand the way the market works here and the dynamics of the whole system, it's actually pretty straightforward. And that's hopefully, I've only got 15 minutes today, but that's hopefully something I can, share while we're on the show.
Hopefully we'll get into it. Put you on the spot. Should internships be paid?
100% yes. But once again, we need to understand how the whole organism in the UAE functions for us to sort of understand how it works, why you should be paid, and how that sometimes always isn't the case.
So in the times when it's not the case, why are some companies not paying their interns? Okay. And for example, like in your opinion, is experience of a big name on a CV enough to lure fresh grads? Great question.
Let me just start by explaining that there's three areas in play with the internship situation. So you've got the employer's needs, the interns, and also the system. From an employer's perspective, if you look at sort of how they approach internships, it tends to be more of a potentially a nice to have rather than it be a mandate. So for them, depending on who your manager is and how they value an intern specifically, you're going to have a completely different experience. Now, a lot of the people that we speak to in terms of employment, they sort of see them as a bit of a resource drain, to be honest with you. And that's how we have to re-educate them and say, listen, no, a good intern will be one of your superstar hires forever. And because the UAE is mainly an SME-based market, a lot of business owners are kind of worried about bringing someone in, training them, and then they go off to a competitor, for example. So from their perspective, I sort of understand that they kind of a bit closed off. And to answer your question about the working for, let's say, a Big Four accounting firm or something like that, then yes, I think it does. If you get one of those and you're fortunate enough to do it, I think it's probably one of the best stepping stones you can have into industry. But the stats show that's actually quite unlikely, really. If you want to be realistic about it, the UAE has, from the stats that we've done research on, 30,000 graduates per year, and at any one time there's about 500 internship jobs online.
Across all industries? There's 500 industries?
Advertised publicly, it's 500. Yeah. So you tell me whether that's realistic or not. It's actually very difficult. And I'm going to get onto the system challenges we have. From an internship perspective, like an intern, like I mentioned, the competition is so high, and they don't necessarily know how to get into a company, right? They just think a CV or a cover letter is going to do it, when it's completely different. You've got to really understand the value you bring to a business. Are you just an intern or a resource drain, or are you a value addition? And as soon as an intern understands what they can bring to a company, and you've got to look at it, you're essentially a personality hire. So if you don't really push yourself out there and be known and network with the right decision makers in the company, you're sort of just screaming into the ether. There was really no, you're swimming against the ocean, as the current, as I like to say, because you're competing not only with other interns, you're also competing with everyone in the world applying for the same job as you are. And like, for example, I've got a story where we advertised a marketing intern job at our company. We received hundreds of applications. Some of these guys, I mean, it's like 10, 15 years industry experience, and they're just, and just applying randomly. So, yeah, and that gets me onto the last thing, which is the system, which is just completely broken. Really, honestly, the system in the UAE it needs a huge revamp on internships from top to bottom.
What do you mean by the system?
Great question. All right, so how does an intern get an internship? We've got to look at it this way. So one of the main areas that people have, obviously, are career advisors in their own universities. I don't think, and I don't believe, the universities are doing enough to have enough partnerships with the private sector in terms of businesses. And again, I'm not going to name any names, but I go into universities quite frequently to try and get partnerships with them in order to recommend interns to us, or at least like junior level staff, so we can, offer them out to our clients. The majority of the education institutions that I've been to, they seem to pride themselves on when a student graduates, they get international job opportunities. I'm like, but it's a resource brain drain out of the country. If you're looking to actually grow a huge economy out here, having your own, like a locally trained educated student coming into the workforce is way more valuable than bringing them from outside the country. So that's quite disappointing to see. And as obviously a well-known recruitment company here, we get maybe around 1 to 2 companies, like universities, reaching out to us to sort of partner with us for interns. And it's very badly done. We get a generic email go out. We usually say yes, we're interested, and we don't hear anything back in return. So whoever is doing it on their side tends to not be like super motivated to actually get these partnerships sorted out. I could go on for quite a while, by the way, so I'm quite passionate about this. So yeah, if you want to...
No, interesting to spotlight the university's role in internships. If you've got a fresh grad looking for a job opportunity and they're trying to figure out if it's on page, should I take it? What are tells for the student that this will be a valuable internship where I can get my hands dirty, I can do real work rather than getting coffees?
Great question. And that's going to come down to their ability to build a relationship with the technical hiring manager. So if you're, let's say, for example, you're in media or advertising, who are you reporting to? Who are you shadowing? You might also understand that, there's only going to be potentially 3, 6, 12 months. Do you put up with someone who's potentially a bad manager just because you're going to get that experience? Or do you look for the personality that, you just click immediately? Because usually you can sort of see that someone really cares or they act as a mentor to you. And in that case, you can, understand that if you do well, arrive on time or early, listen to what they have to say, add value by not just being a passive employee, but actually being proactive, doing things without being told, all these little things, if you will be rewarded. And I think that's how you have to put yourself out there and do the best you can in that position. And then, as a business, they are way more likely to keep you on board.
But let's say we're talking about before the job has been agreed on. Can an intern level ask the hard questions without sounding like an entitled Gen Z? Because I feel like there's like a stereotype on a certain generation that, they don't want to do the hard work. But can you ask the hard questions and can you negotiate terms? Do you see interns negotiating with employers, or if they start negotiating, they'll go to the next person?
I think you should negotiate. I think that shows a bit of maturity on your part to do that, rather than just being an agreeable person in the instance. Especially because it is an SME-driven market. A lot of the internship opportunities will come from those types of companies, and they don't necessarily always have a really strict or set internship program. So if they like you, and like I said, obviously I'll give some tips towards the end, but if they like you already, they will agree to a lot of the terms that you're requesting because they see you as a value. And that all depends on how you're positioning yourself. So yeah, of course, negotiate at the beginning. Negotiate anything from allowances, from the amount of time you can spend in the office, the responsibilities. It's not just pay, which I think they should be paid. Especially if you're going into like a revenue generating position. If you're in marketing, sales, advertising, or media, where you're out there meeting clients or at least pitching, you absolutely should be paid. They should all be paid, but the ones where you're actively growing your business, so non-negotiable for me. If you want to consider a non-paid internship, I think that then if it's a big enough company that you think is giving you a foothold in the industry, then you consider it. I think that's fine. But most of those companies will pay you anyway.
Interesting. Well, the reason the conversation comes forward is because there apparently is a good few unpaid internships and many students looking for them. So if I'm looking for an internship, you've seen hundreds, if not thousands, of CVs coming through your door. What are red flags on a CV, and what makes them stand out?
I think a red flag is, for me, is something that's almost purely ChatGPT written or it could be AI generated one, which I understand because there's so much content out there saying, listen, use ChatGPT and send it out there. But I want to see the person come through. So I would like to see, just in terms of what their hobbies are, what their achievements are, what their extracurricular activities are, why they're suitable for that role. Make sure it's tailored towards the industry that they're applying to, and ideally even necessarily the company. And don't just ChatGPT write the cover letter. Trust me, it's a lot better for you to just do it yourself. Last year, obviously, like I said, you got AI, just make sure you send it out as tailored. Now it's just becoming spam. A lot of companies are receiving almost the same email over and over and over again. It's really hard to differentiate yourself. So I would say in terms of a CV, just make sure it's extremely relevant to what you're applying to. And there is some kind of synergy between you and the person that you're sending it to, if you want to stand out.
If you see a typo?
It doesn't matter.
Doesn't matter. Using photos?
Again, I would say if it's a client-facing position, so for example, if it's a sales role, marketing, media, or something where you might be in front of a camera, I do understand why an employer might want to just sort of understand how your presentability, the way you dress, or maybe the way you might resonate with their target audience. I would say do it that way, but also it doesn't really matter fundamentally. If it's like an engineering position or healthcare, your photo doesn't really make much of a difference.
Do you see many companies saying, promising full-time roles and are not coming through? Or do most internships lead to full-time jobs?
The majority of them do not lead to full-time jobs. And that's because most of them are not paid. This is where I'm going to go back to the system question, because I don't want to rant for too long before. But one of the reasons is that it's broken is that if you look at motivations of somebody, you're offering them an employment opportunity without paying them. How motivated are they going to be to wake up on a Monday morning after a weekend out, to turn up early and to do a full 10-hour shift and come back on a Tuesday and complete the whole internship on the hope that they might get something paid at the end of it? That's almost impossible. So the employers have a bad experience with that person, or interns, they don't work out. And it's like, yeah, but probably because you're not paying them and they're not motivated enough to turn up. And those people tend to be the same types of managers that aren't motivating, they're not inspirational, maybe they lack a bit of charisma, they're just like, you should be doing your job. In my day, I would turn up. Those kinds of old school management styles that don't necessarily lend themselves well to the new generation of graduates that are coming out, who need a mentorship, who need someone to actually, help them through this process. And give them valuable skills and make them believe and trust that this is best for their career. And I think that's really lacking here too. So that's part of the broken system issue we have.
If you don't get a full-time job, is it worth asking for feedback? And do you see these employers giving real valuable feedback to interns after they've completed their time?
It completely depends. Now, because the market here is so competitive, a lot of the times, because when an internship finishes, maybe potentially someone might be expecting a salary, and depending on where the revenue is on the company at that time, they may not be able to afford to have somebody. So they may just come up with something and say, listen, it's just not worked out, or we don't have the budget for that right now, which is probably what the majority of people would get. Some interns, like I say, they depending if they were paid or not, if they're right motivations, right manager, maybe they didn't perform as well because the environment wasn't nurturing enough for them to perform. So then they might just be told that it didn't work out for whatever reason. So it's up to an astute person to understand, is this environment going to be one that's nurturing me, or do I have to sort of be the really proactive approach here and think, I'm going to do my best, get out after 6 to 12 months, and then see something better.
Before you leave us, what's the best piece of advice you would give to fresh graduates or students starting out on their career journey? Yeah, so pick and choose wisely. Understand and research a company, and not just the company, the person. Spend 10 minutes less on Instagram, 10 minutes more on LinkedIn, and research the top 50 players in the business. Understand who the right technical hiring manager is. Avoid, let's say, recruitment or HR at this stage, right? Because they're not going to be the ones that are, let's say, taking your career in their hands. They will facilitate the process, and they're amazing when they get into it. But let's say, for example, if you are in engineering and you need to reach out to an engineering manager, that person could be the one that actually would take you on board under their wing and nurture you. So don't just apply for a job that's out there that says internship. Create that job. Build a relationship with the right person at the right company and make sure there's synergy between the two of you, because the more synergy there is, the more likely is this is going to be a success. And that's essentially what you want. You don't want to waste your time at the end of the day. Extremely valuable insights and advice. Thank you, Rami, so much for joining us on the show. That is the end of the Lovin Dubai show. We're back here every single weekday morning, same time, same place. We'll see you tomorrow morning. Have a beautiful day. Bye-bye.